This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's that time of year. iOS 12 on the iPhone and the iPad. We're going to cover what's new and if you should upgrade today, and also Apple Watch OS 5. And right now I can tell you, yes, you should upgrade, because several months ago, Apple said instead of focusing on whiz-bang G new features, they were going to focus on stability and performance improvements, sort of like Microsoft did when they went to Windows 10, which you might have discovered if you actually do use Windows occasionally, perform better on weaker hardware. The same thing is true here. Now, we're testing on the iPhone 8 Plus, the iPhone 10, and in our office, some older iPhone models. And when they said 40% faster launching apps, 70% faster swiping to get to the camera, I was like, yeah, it never seemed that slow. But I did notice some apps, like if for those of you who use OneNote, always launched slowly. My grocery shopping list app always launched slowly. Anyway, suddenly it was like, wow, boom, it was right there. That's nice to see, especially for those of you who are keeping your phones and you don't upgrade every year, which a lot of people don't, especially because iPhones are expensive. So on that premise alone, before we even tell you about what else is new, performance-wise and stability-wise, this is a go. Even in the betas, it was very stable because they want to make a point of making it stable. With iOS 11 last year, it was a rocky start. There were bugs. Now, to be fair, in part because there was a lot of fundamental changes to support the whole new hardware design that they were doing with the iPhone 10, the edge-to-edge display, the whole notch support, the new kinds of cameras they were using. So this year, there's less of that going on. They could focus on that. Good stuff. So let's talk about the other stuff now. First up, something that touches all of us, notifications. Even if you're an iOS fanboy or fangirl, you have to admit that iOS's handling of notifications is just not all there and awesome, especially compared to something like Android. Well, they have done some improvements here, including grouped notifications. So, for example, I have a Ring doorbell. Those of you who follow me on Twitter know that because we have problems with things like the lizards crawling around on the walls and setting off the Ring doorbell. So I might get like 3 notifications, pretty much rapid fire. Instead of going swipe and swipe and swipe, now they're grouped together. So you can remove the whole group of them together, which is fantastic because swipe-itis was a disease for iOS. Also, now you can, right there in the notification shade, you can manage. There's a little third option that says manage your notifications here. So if you decide that this is just too darned annoying, you can do something about it. Next thing is FaceTime. You can now FaceTime with up to 32 people. Are you that popular? Even I'm not that popular. And geez, I'm on YouTube, right? But I think it's probably more family reunions, businesses, and probably still you won't hit 32 people. But group FaceTime is now a thing. And last year we had Animojis. So this year we have Memoji. So what is that? Because of the processing power on these phones and the fancy pants camera that's on the iPhone 10, the 10s and the 10s Max, those are the only phones that support this, you can do basically constant animated emoji use, cartoon character versions of you. If you wish to be a koala bear or a tiger while you're doing FaceTime, you can do it. So the whole time that you're FaceTiming, it's the Memoji version of you. Okay. For those of you who are students, you can now use basically the Wallet app to carry a digital version of your student ID card, and there's several universities that are supporting that already. The Photos app has been revamped. It now supports RAW editing on the iPhone and the iPad both. And speaking of app revamps, some of them have gotten more full-featured and more modern looking, like the Stocks app that pretty much just showed the stocks and nothing else. Well, now it actually shows you lots of information about what's going on in the world today of business, and if you tap on a particular stock that's in your list, you can get up-to-date information more quickly and more easily. And on the iPad, it's kind of like a mini Bloomberg presentation. It's very nice. iBooks is now called Apple Books, and it's got a redesign as well. And probably the most interesting thing there is that the store application functionality within that now looks more like the App Store. So it's more consistent kind of look, and it does look better too. For those of you who have AR cameras supported in your phones, well, it can now measure things. This is not exactitude. This is not you just bought a fine art painting and you want to measure the canvas to get a frame made for it. This is pretty close enough. Like you want to look at that couch there in IKEA and see if that's basically going to fit in your living room, that sort of thing. So it's pretty neat that you can do that, and it's pretty easy to do. For those of you who have DND mode, but you're information junkies and you can't stop yourself from waking up and looking at your phone screen, there's an option, so don't have a panic attack, there's an option now to really put it to super DND mode, which means it's not going to show any notifications on screen until it's time for you to get up. Also, in the spirit of phone health, shall we say, where people use their phones too much, there's a new function that allows you to keep track of what you're doing, how much you're using your phone, how many times a day you use it. When you discover you picked up your phone 500 times in a day, you realize you might have a problem. Also, it's going to tell you how much you're using each application. So for those of you who are addicted to the latest game, you're going to find out how that is, or if you spend too much time on Facebook, whatever it is. Again, this is up to you. You don't have to use this. It's up to you if you do want to use them. Hooking into that kind of functionality where the phone actually knows what you're doing and all that sort of thing, the battery information has gotten more granular too. So it tells you how much screen on time. This is getting a little bit more like Android, which applications you're spending the most time in a given hour. So you can actually see 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. There's a little graph of how much screen on time. So when you're wondering where your battery life went, it's going to help you figure it out a little more clearly. Safari now has enhanced tracking protection. You know how creepy it is when you're looking at that laptop on some website thinking about it and it follows you around in every single ad for a week? The attempt here is to try to prevent that, to block that sort of tracking. So every time you look at some kind of product, even if you went ahead and bought it, it still tracks you everywhere. Good. Also, if you're doing social shares, that sort of thing, by default, it's not going to share your location, which is kind of good because some of us don't really want to be stalked. CarPlay now supports third-party navigation because, well, you know, Apple Maps. So if you'd rather use something like Google Maps and not have it tell you to go drive in a river, you can do that. So Siri, she's still trying to get smarter. And to be fair to Apple, part of the reason Siri isn't seemingly as smart as Google's Assistant and sometimes even Amazon Alexa is because Apple is very focused on privacy. They don't really want to track all that sort of data and pull it back to the service for interpretation and all that sort of thing. But still, there are things that Siri can do on the phone to make your life easier. She can look at your habits. If you do the same daily rituals, the same sort of thing, she can start to suggest automated things that she can do. You can create shortcuts on the home screen because you always do a certain number of things at a certain time every day. She also now supports food information, so from the USDA database of food and nutrition, you can find out just how healthy or unhealthy that thing is that you're thinking about eating next. And she can help you find your iPhone, your iPad, and even your AirPods. So on the iPad, there's really only two big changes there, and finally support for gestures. And if you're like me and you have both an iPhone and an iPad, you start to feel awful stupid because you're used to those iPhone gestures, right, where you swipe down from the right and you've got Control Center, which used to do nothing on the iPad, inexplicably. And swiping up from the top to do multitasking likewise did nothing. Well, now they both do something. They do the same thing as they do on your iPhone. So the swipe up is a quick way to multitask and get to your home screen. And if you want to get to Control Center without, leaving an application, you can swipe down and adjust your brightness or do whatever it is you need. For watchOS, there's several health things that have been added. You've got yoga and hiking now supported for exercise apps. You have low heart rate monitoring for those who have extremely low heartbeats, that sort of thing. And also, yay, we finally have automatic workout detection. So if you start running for the bus, and it's a pretty long run, you'll get credit for that. Or if you're like me and you go out and you start a run and you forget to hit the I'm starting the exercise button on your watch, it will figure it out and give you credit for that. Also, another thing it's easy to forget is you're done with your workout, you go running into the shower, is to actually tell it that you finished. It also has automatic workout end detection as well. You no longer have to say, "Hey Siri," to your watch. You can just raise your hand and do it instead. Finally, after a weird glitch in watchOS 4, podcasts are back. We have a dedicated podcast app now, and it supports for offline podcast playback and offline playlist playing too. So third-party applications like Spotify included as well. So yay for those of you who don't have an LTE watch and don't want to pay for streaming over LTE. By the way, all watches except for the original 2015 model are eligible for watchOS 5. Lastly, there's a walkie-talkie feature now. Both you and your walkie-talkie partner have to have an Apple Watch, but then you can just talk to each other real-time anytime you want. It supports voice, not voice and anything else, just voice, but it's kind of cool. So there you have it. That's what's new in iOS 12 and watchOS 5. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, including reviews of the iPhone XS and the XS Max, and eventually the iPhone XR.